Hello, my name is David Jones. I'm the coordinator of the Global Agenda for Social Work and Social Development. And in this short presentation, I'm going to talk to you about where the Global Agenda started, the journey we've been all on together, and many of you have shared in that journey, what the latest report has shown us. The report focused on promoting the importance of human relationships. And then I'm going to look forward to the next decade. But as we come to the end of this first decade of the Global Agenda, there is a lot to celebrate and some lessons to learn. And between us, I hope we will do that over the next few minutes. So going now to the presentation, which I'm going to talk you through. Here we are with the first slide and the general meeting and looking at the global agenda. And we're looking at two elements in the global agenda. Obviously, as I've already described, there is the period of the first decade, and that has come to an end now, and we have some evaluation to share with you. And then we're looking ahead to the next decade of the global agenda. So just let us remind ourselves about what the global agenda is. And first of all, it is a partnership between these three organizations: the International Association of Schools of Social Work, the International Council on Social Welfare, and the International Federation of Social Workers. And between us, we have managed this process of the global agenda. There are a team of coordinators who have seen the process through in the last 2 or 3 years, and their names there are on the screen. Anna Maria Campanini and Barbara Schank from the Schools of Social Work, Eva Homburg-Herström and Tom Johannesson from the International Council on Social Welfare, and President Silvana Martinez and Rory Truell from IFSW. I have been the coordinator on behalf of all three organizations, and I stand down at the end of this year when Abe Tasse will take over as the coordinator. Let me move the picture to the other side of the screen, and that will work better. So why did we have the global agenda at all? Well, this took some time to build, but there were a number of objectives. We wanted to increase our visibility as organizations and as professions. We wanted to increase our influence, not only with the United Nations and the global institutions, but also the national institutions, to strengthen and promote social work and to increase the self-confidence of social workers, because we knew that social workers very often said that nobody really listened to them, nobody heard their experience. And it was important that the global organizations supported individual social workers. But we also wanted to challenge established ways of thinking, to think new ways of working and new ways of improving people's social environment. Then we also wanted to support national associations and networks and regions, and to enable them to build their strength in partnership across the world and in their region. And we wanted to strengthen the global bodies and our own partnership. And that, of course, was important. And this process started a long time ago. It was a long time in the planning. There were discussions from 2000 onwards about joint working and closer partnerships. But in 2006, there was the serious start of planning for the global agenda and the first conference that took place in Hong Kong, and perhaps some of you were there. That was the first joint conference at a global level between the three organizations and the new format of working together. And we decided that we needed to link our conferences and our long-term strategy for influence. And these things needed to be brought together. So often our conferences were what I call an anarchic marketplace of ideas, people just sharing and talking, which is always great. But for a profession, for an organization, you need a sense of purpose, you need a sense of direction. And that's what we wanted to bring out of the global agenda process. So in 2010 in Hong Kong, we launched the conference, and there were up to 3,000 people registered. Not all of them in the room at the time, but there were a lot of people. And we had a consultation before the conference, and then we started the partnership from 2010 onwards in this first decade. So we have been working together for 14 or 16 years, consistently as partners, evolving and developing this global agenda. And that in itself is a huge achievement, that we've been able to keep our purpose, to keep our focus, and to keep the sense of direction, and to give a sense of confidence to all those social workers and those involved in social development around the world. So after 2010, we published our first Towards an Engagement agenda, and we went out again for more consultation. And some of you, I'm sure, fed back about that. And we linked social work days with this whole process. So between 2010 and 2012, there were 2 social work days focused on thinking about the global agenda. And then in 2012, after the conference in Stockholm, we brought together our commitments to action. And that then developed and led forward, drawing on 4 themes or pillars that came out of the Hong Kong conference and were refined in Stockholm: promoting social and economic equalities, promoting the dignity and worth of peoples, promoting community and environmental sustainability, and strengthening recognition of the importance of human relationships. And each of those themes was the focus for a 2-year period in the period after the Stockholm conference from 2012. So the first one from 2012 to 2014 was about promoting social and economic equalities. But through all of this period, we also had a focus on the working environment and on education and training, because social workers, social development practitioners need a working environment which enables them to work ethically and in a sustainable way. And they need education and training not only at the beginning, but in a continuous process. And that is also important. And our organizations were working on those themes along in parallel with the global agenda themes. Then we decided to set up observatories to study what was happening in social work and social development, to collect evidence about the positive actions of social workers, educators, and social development practitioners, to support implementation of the global agenda, to give visibility and credibility to practice and all that was going on, and to promote further action and lobbying, because you need to bring together your knowledge and your experience so you can share it with others. And it's only through doing that that we can get more support. We cannot be irritated with others for not listening to what we are doing if we don't give them the information. So these observatories were intended to do this. And in 2011, after the Hong Kong conference, we had the first big social work day, responding to global crises, developing the global agenda. And we developed the posters in many languages. We started off with just a few, but as you see, as this process developed, more and more countries, more and more languages were taking part. And then in 2014, we came to the conference in Melbourne, and we developed a new set of posters for that year, and that was focused on promoting equalities and responding to the social and economic crisis that had developed through 2008-9 and the difficulties that flowed through those years and continued for some years afterwards. So in 2014, our regional observatories fed the information in. We had an overview at a global level, and we published our first report, the Global Agenda for Social Work and Social Development, Promoting Social and Economic Equalities. And we did that with SAGE, and that report is still available free. The web link is on the screen. but you can also find it through the websites of the International Federation of Social Workers and the Schools of Social Work and the Council on Social Welfare. So then we moved into the second theme through 15 and 16, promoting the dignity and worth of peoples. And we collected information through that period. People increasingly engaged with World Social Work Days. And in 2016, at the conference there, we promoted the dignity and worth of peoples. That was the conference in Seoul in South Korea. And that conference was about that theme, and the report was about that theme. And then we moved into the next theme, which was promoting community and environmental sustainability. And that was new for social work in many ways, and still is new, linking social work and social development practice with climate change, the climate emergency, and the importance of community and environmental sustainability. And each report we published got bigger and bigger, and they're all available free of charge on the various websites. You can download that report, which is around 250 pages. And finally, the last 2 years has been about promoting the importance of human relationships. And there you can see the poster, and you may remember that we had to change the poster at short notice because originally it was a handshake, but after the pandemic, it was important that we had physical distancing or distant socializing, or whichever way you wish to put it. But we focused on the importance of human relationships in World Social Work Days. And we had a team of coordinators, and I put their names on the screen here because we are about to publish the next report, and this is very exciting. But I must thank the coordinators and all the people across all the countries who fed in so much material to the fourth report. And here you are, the first site of the cover of the first report, strengthening recognition of the importance of human relationships. And that report has got 350 pages and is also a free PDF download. You can also buy it as a printed book if you want. And what were the issues that came out of that report? Well, there were several of them. Worsening inequality, that has been an issue across the decade. Although we've seen in some senses before the pandemic a reduction in extreme poverty across the world, particularly because of activity in China, we have also seen growing inequality between the richer and poorer people, both within each country and also between countries. And we know that growing inequality produces conflict, and we are seeing that conflict, and we have warned about that conflict throughout the decade. In this particular decade, we also see the importance of well-being for all and health services as the pandemic sweeps the world, but also the importance of having sustainable communities. And in this report on relationships, we see how important it is to involve people in decision-making, that we need as a community and as social workers and social development practitioners, as governments, to support respectful relationships. We also have noted in this report the importance of respecting practice experience, which is often ignored by agencies and managers who can be very focused on data and performance targets, but forget that you cannot achieve the targets if you do not have the positive relationships that make it all possible. The importance of a good work environment, of good management relationships, and of course of, as always, resourcing education, training, and research. So this brings together the findings from our 10-year journey. And what can we say now about the evaluation process of this whole 10 years? What can we say we have achieved? Have we achieved our objectives? Well, it's for others perhaps to say, but we have done quite a systematic evaluation. involving people from all the 3 organisations, our member organisations and others. And what I think we can honestly say is that we have significantly increased the global visibility and influence of our 3 organisations, both working as a partnership and elsewhere. And it's increased that visibility with individual social workers within countries, it's given a focus for our member organisations and individual members. And it's also enabled us to provide reports to the United Nations. We've had global and regional conferences have all been linked to these themes, and we're learning how we can make these connections more effectively, and how we can make sure we get out our clear and straightforward messages. World Social Work Days have become more and more active, have involved more and more countries. I think now we have spontaneously, without any organization, we provide the posters, and countries translate them, I think, into more than 60 or 70 languages in the last year. And more and more people are taking action on that day. They don't need to be organized. It's just become something that we all know happens, and we are all able to join in World Social Work Day. There have been over 100 academic publications that have discussed the global agenda, and books and journal articles, and also more magazine articles, and have critiqued the agenda. Some have been very critical, and that's what we want to encourage. We want to encourage a debate. But the global agenda has promoted a common identity. It has strengthened our partnerships. It has certainly challenged creative thinking, for example, around the links between the environment and practice, but also around the nature of relationships. And because of all these things, it's boosted the self-confidence of our organizations. And I think the World Social Work Days and the connections with local communities, we've made a connection between the global bodies and individual practitioners in their own area. People have begun to see that there is a link. But we have relied heavily on voluntary commitment, and we'd hoped that we would stimulate new resources to come in to help us, research funding and other resources. That really hasn't happened. And as we move through the next decade, it's really important that we think about the sustainability of this process. If it really is our core flagship partnership and our central activity, then we have to invest in it, and we have to see it as something that requires time and energy, and it's not sufficient to rely on voluntary activity as the main engine for this. We need to explore sustainability and make sure that this is solid and secure for the future. So, coming to the end, what comes next? Well, we've appointed a task force of 2 people from each organisation, working with Abby, Tassie and myself, to do the evaluation and to look to the future to think about the themes. And we had hoped now to have proposals about those themes for this conference and for these meetings in 2020. But obviously, the whole world has been hit by the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. And that has pushed us to think that probably it is not wise, given all of the uncertainties and the political tensions that are going to flow as well. It's not wise to fix our themes and our pillars for the next whole decade whilst we're in the middle of this crisis. But what we do know is that solidarity has become more and more important. We've seen that in local communities, we've seen that between countries, we've seen that between professions. So the first theme for the next 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, is going to be something around solidarity, but exactly what is still open to consultation. And if you're interested, there's still an opportunity to contribute to that consultation. But we're continuing the consultation through the rest of this year and into next year about what the themes for the following 8 years should be. And then we need 4 themes to work through. Solidarity will run through all of them as a thread running through them. But what should the themes be? And we've decided that they need to be at a reasonably high global level. So we're not talking about a focus on children or a focus on disability or a focus on older people, although all of those should run through every theme as sub-themes. But we do need to think about what are the big issues that social work and social development need to grapple with into the next decade. So I'm standing down as David Jones at the end of this period in August, and Abby Tassé is taking over. Abby and I were both involved back in 2006, so Abby is well grounded in the global agenda process, understands it thoroughly, and is with his global contacts and his connections through the French government, but also through his international experience, means that the global agenda is in very safe hands, and I am sure will develop and expand its thinking with his leadership. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the global agenda. And the themes that, or the messages that came out in Hong Kong were these: together we build the agenda, together we face the many challenges, and together we thrive. And those messages, it seems to me, are still relevant now, 10 years later. Together we have built this agenda, and that has relied on scores and hundreds of people around the world contributing in different ways. And if you've been one of them, thank you very much. But we certainly face challenges, and huge challenges in the world ahead. Not only the pandemic, but also the problems of inequality, the problems of populism, the problems of hatred. These are still around in our world, and as social workers, we must challenge them. And if we do that together, we can be strong, and we can make a difference for the world. So thank you for your part in the global agenda. I've been pleased to be involved in it over these 10 years and look forward to handing it on. And congratulations to you and your organizations for all that you have done to contribute to that whole process. So from me, thank you, and it's goodbye from the global agenda, but I'll probably still be around in some way, and I'm not running away, but it's good to be able to look back together with some pride that all that we have achieved together in the global agenda. And there behind me is the poster with the Hong Kong symbol, symbolizing our decade on the global agenda for social work. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your contributions.
Thank you, David, for the comprehensive report. We want to take the opportunity in the general meeting to acknowledge the enormous amount of work that David has undertaken to drive forward the global agenda for social work and social development.
David's energy and vision leading up to the launch of the first global agenda in 2010 has been outstanding. Without David's passion and drive in this, we believe that the social work profession would not be in the strong and vibrant position that it is today. As a consequence of David's leadership, the profession is much more visible and supported by UN agencies and recognised by many governments across the world. David's work in building the global agenda has significantly assisted in unifying the profession globally and has provided a focus for social workers, educators, and social service providers alike.
Unfortunately, David will now be stepping down from his role as the tripartite global agenda coordinator at the 2020 conference in a few days' time. So we take this opportunity in the IFSW general meeting to thank him for his exemplary leadership. We look forward to honouring and building on David's legacy in the 2020 conference and beyond. David, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.